You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh and James Jones. And for the first time in a very, very long time on the We Are West Ham podcast, we've got something a little bit negative to talk about. West Ham United have received a ban on away supporters for their next UEFA fixture after approximately 150 West Ham fans allegedly stormed the away turnstiles at GENK, the game that I was at, leaving or lots of West Ham fans who've booked travel and accommodation to go to Rapid Vienna out of pocket. Jonesy and I are affected by the news. Our plans are still a little bit up in the air at the moment, but we're out of pocket. If we don't end up going, to the tune of around £500 to £600 on flight and hotels, etc. So we'll be talking about that in a bit more detail later on, where we both stand on the club's approach, what we think of the people who done it, etc., etc. But ultimately, West Ham are still third in the Premier League, given that there's been no games to look back on other than the international stuff. England have qualified for the World Cup next year. Never really felt in doubt, did it? And with God knows how many, 15 goals, Jonesy, in 2 games, it was never really in doubt after all. I was a little bit nervous about Albania. But yeah, no West Ham games to look back on. Declan wasn't in the England squad through illness, and Mikel Antonio got 2 in 2 with one absolute perler for Jamaica. But no West Ham games, so which means the Hammers are still third in the Premier League, still top of our Europa League group, and things are all still looking up. James Jones, me and you had a phenomenal day out together on Saturday. I turned 30. James and his wife, as well as some of my friends and family, joined me at Lingfield Racecourse for a absolutely superb day. In the end, Jonesy, it was nice to have a little social, wasn't it?
Wonderful, mate. It was a lovely day out. I think I texted you a couple of days later saying just thanks for having a birthday, because it was a wonderful day.
Yeah.
It was really good fun. Won a little bit of money. I know you won a fair bit on the first race as well. Got a little bit lucky. Was it 32 to 1?
See, great, 32 to 1. Yeah, thanks.
Lovely.
Just a big thanks to Chad from Chad Yeomans from Betway for that tip on that race. 32 to 1, £10 on the nose, 330 quid. Yeah, that set my day up very nicely indeed, mate.
Happy days. Yeah, I mean, we came away, we doubled our money on the day as well, Lucy and I. So yeah, that was a good day all round. Nice to have a few drinks, nice to catch up properly in person. And yeah, I'm looking forward to your next birthday. What are you going to do next year?
Yeah, well, mate, I'm only 31 next year. It's not quite as exciting or entertaining, is it?
I mean, you say that, but the older you get, the better it gets, mate.
Yeah, that is true, mate.
Take my word for that.
Yeah, I maybe we'll do the same next year, mate. We'll book it in, get everyone lined up once again. But that was a phenomenal day. But yeah, as far as West Ham goes, Jonesy, I don't know how much everyone wants to hear about our little personal excursions, but as far as West Ham go, it's as I mentioned already, it's like the first downer we've had for a long time, really, isn't it? First reason to talk about anything negative on the podcast, which in a weird way is actually like where we're most comfortable and what we're most used to doing over the sort of 4 years or so, 3 or 4 years we've been doing this, and then the radio show before. The majority of it has been somewhat negative, isn't it? But yeah, the news obviously broke earlier this week that UEFA had banned West Ham fans or West Ham from selling away tickets to their next UEFA match, which the match in question is Rapid Vienna away next Thursday, the 25th of November, very, very close to the day of the game. The news was announced. It related to some crowd disturbances and items being thrown on the pitch at GENK away. I was very surprised when I heard the news, mate. Having been at the game, everyone seemed fairly well behaved, or impeccably behaved, to be quite honest. I didn't know anything about the turnstile stuff which has come out since, but having spoken to West Ham myself when the news emerged, they were blindsided by it. They've effectively sort of revealed that in their statements they've made since. They were just, the club knew about as much as I did when I spoke to them about the UEFA disciplinary note that was issued, which didn't have much detail at all. West Ham were then forced to write to UEFA. They released a statement, didn't they, West Ham? And in it, they revealed they were forced to write to UEFA to basically ask, what have we done? What's happened here? We've been fined €30,000 for the one incident, and then 4.5, I think it was, for the other. The throwing of items, which I'm almost certain, I don't know this for sure, but it's just an opinion having been there, must have been the flare thrown on the pitch after the goal that Vladimir Soufal was forced to come over and kick off the sideline. Might not have been visible on TV, I don't know, but certainly was in the ground. It's emerged since, Jonesy, I think I'm right in saying that, it relates to around 150 West Ham fans, ticketless West Ham fans, storming the turnstiles, gaining access to the ground and watching the game from inside the stadium when they didn't have any tickets. Is that sort of your understanding of events before we go on to opinions?
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it. Is that's why the ban has come in. Obviously, I'll leave my opinion for when it gets to it, but yeah, it's just very odd timing. But you can kind of see why that ban is in place if in fact it is a case that people are storming the turnstiles in order to get in without a ticket.
Yeah. Now, again, so before we go on that, we'll look at the timing of the whole thing first of all. So the issue, Jonesy, first emerged on Monday night. Am I right in saying that? Yeah, it's Monday night or Tuesday. Sorry, I've worked 2 days this week, and I can just remember that I was at work for one of them.
It was Monday night, wasn't it?
So Monday night, it was Monday night, right? So that's when the first thing came out from UEFA, which was Monday afternoon. I spoke to West Ham quite soon after that, within 45 minutes of it going up on a very obscure part of the UEFA website, by the way, that where they just post their disciplinary notices, no real fanfare. They just post that, and there's a very short bit of detail on it. West Ham then released their statement on Monday evening saying that they received an email late on Monday afternoon from UEFA. So I'm led to believe that UEFA informed the club at the same time as posting it out, where it's effectively available to the public. So €34,500. And then it said for the next UEFA match, the club, West Ham statement read, the club are urgently seeking clarification from UEFA, particularly given the extremely short notice of the sanction, which will impact our supporters who've already bought tickets and made arrangements to travel to Austria for our match against Rapid Vienna in just over a week. We're surprised to receive these sanctions and disappointed for the fans who have behaved impeccably and supported the team throughout and will now be unable to travel to the next away Europa League fixture. Club has requested full written reasons, blah, blah, blah. So at that stage, Jonesy, I was baffled, to be honest. I thought, the throwing on the pitch, that's a flare, obviously. Surely that can't justify a complete ban. An away fan ban, that seems well harsh. That sort of thing you see happen all the time. There's flares left, right and centre in a lot of European games. And the crowd disturbance, I was honestly flummoxed. There was a tiny little bit of like handbag stuff by the barrier between the home and away fans at one point, sort of, I'd say in the second half. But I'm talking nothing, just like a bit of shouting and I didn't see any objects being exchanged, anything like that, a bit of shouting. And I thought, well, I don't know what's gone on here. I literally have no idea. The club, as I say, they were blindsided by the whole thing as well. It strikes me as odd. I don't know about you, first of all. Let's look at the UEFA thing first. It strikes me as odd that when you issue such a harsh ban, that the club in question, who are obviously going to have to deal with the fallout, namely, like, first of all, dealing with the refunds of 1,700 tickets, which were sold out, by the way, at the time of that the sanction was announced. It strikes me as absolutely baffling that when UEFA issue a sanction or make a decision like that, that it's then down for the club to go to write back and say, okay, can you tell us what this is about, please? What?
Yeah. None of it makes any sense. Like, if they were investigating the club for any fan disturbances, objects being thrown. The club should have been made aware immediately after the game, because UEFA would have known immediately after that game that there needed to be, or even the day after the game, that there were things that happened during that game that needed to be investigated. To leave it essentially 2 weeks.
Well, the game took place on the 5th, didn't it?
Yeah.
4th. Sorry, the Thursday the 4th, the GENK away game, which is when these things happened.
Yeah.
The game happened on the 4th, and then where are we? We're Wednesday now, so that's 15th. So 9 days after, 11 days. Sorry, 11 days after the game was when the sanction was issued.
So it's taken them 11 days to not only inform the club that they were being investigated, but inform the club of the charges. And during that time, the club have put tickets up for sale for this game
and sold them all.
Sold them all, and then
1,700 of them.
10 days before the next game, the game that they've been charged, the charges are related to, or kind of are going to affect. Again, well, you can't sell tickets for that game, so we've already sold them. Like, if the club knew that they'd been investigated, then they wouldn't have put those up for general sale. They're going to wait for the decision before we sell these tickets. That would have then stopped the majority of those fans buying tickets, stopped them buying flights, booking hotels, because they'd have been unsure whether they could go or not. Instead, UEFA allowed and were complicit in 1,700 West Ham fans getting excited and spending a lot of their hard-earned money for what would be a bit of a celebration, because if we get a point, we confirm that we win the group. It would have been a celebration. Massive achievement for the club if we get that single point. And knowing that all of that was happening, and then just to dump it on the club, and then, as you said, quite rightly said, that the club have had to go back and go, well, what are you talking about? Like, we don't, it's the first we've heard of it. Like, a business or a governing body of any industry, that's like shambolic. It really is shambolic. To have, like, and particularly where UEFA, I think their hashtag is equal game in their Twitter bio. They go on. They were very against the Super League, obviously for financial reasons, but said a lot about the fans. No thought for the fans in this, and that's my main problem. Is that there's absolutely no thought for the fans, because they would have known. They would have known.
I'm not right, and this is just to anyone listening. This is not my view here. I'm doing it for devil's advocate purposes. Do you think that if you're in the UEFA disciplinary board or whatever, the people that you want to look out for after 150 supporters of a football club have stormed the gate and gone in without a ticket? No, although it's obviously harsh on, I think it's completely wrong, but West Ham fans obviously weren't their favourite people at the time of making this decision anyway, were they? They need to stamp out on that. So the idea that, I mean, for us, it's really bad, particularly like me and you have been directly affected to the tune of around £600, like, between us. For us, it's bad, but UEFA probably think, well, we're making an example of these people. Yeah, fine. If you're out of pocket, it's your first time in this competition. We don't accept that sort of stuff.
No, I get that. And of course, like, you can't, they're not going to go, oh, well, we won't ban them, although they deserve to be banned because all these fans have spent money. Like, the fact is, and what I'm trying to say is that the fact is these fans wouldn't have spent money, or the majority of them wouldn't have spent the money, and they certainly wouldn't have bought tickets if the club were told ASAP that they were being investigated for all that trouble that happened at GENK. And they would have known either on the night or the day after that they were, okay, we need to investigate these reports of crowd trouble or people storming the turnstiles. But to leave it 11 days.
Well, let's be honest, we wouldn't have. We paid recently, didn't we? We wouldn't have.
Yeah. And, if the club is told straight away, look, we don't sell tickets, and tell the fact, you're being investigated, we'll let you know as soon as we can in terms of the results of that investigation before we can sanction or allow you to start selling tickets for this game. The club instead, like, completely none the wiser, sold the tickets. And as soon as you buy a ticket to a football match, particularly abroad, as soon as you've got you've got confirmation that you've got that ticket and you paid for it, you then start booking your flights and your hotel.
Yeah.
So my problem with it isn't the fact that, well, West Ham fans, perhaps, we deserved the ban for what happened.
No, yeah, because it's not. It's 150 people, isn't it? Out of
yeah, I mean, when I heard that today, and the club had said, we're not going to appeal because we've now heard the reasons why. I sort of stepped back and said, well, okay, well, no wonder we got banned. No wonder the ban's in place. No wonder the charges are there. And it's, there's a whole other conversation about sort of, what on earth are you doing? Going away to Belgium and storming the turnstiles. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? But all that aside, it should never have got to this point. It should never have got to this point. And there are a lot of fans that probably still will go. And I was chatting to someone.
Of course there are. Sorry,
I was chatting to someone earlier about it, and they were like, "Well, surely everyone's still going to go out there." And I was like, "Well, that's the problem. That's the next problem, is because a lot of those fans are going to be upset about the fact they can't go to the game. A lot of fans, they might still go over there and maybe try and find a bar to watch it in. Fine, but there will be some fans who will still rock up at the stadium." And be outside the stadium, and I wouldn't put it past fans to do that. Not so much to cause trouble. I'm not saying cause trouble, but they're still going to go in and around it because they've spent money to go to Vienna for a couple of days.
If they have to spend another 30 quid to sit in the home end and they can do it, fans will do that, won't they? Not everyone, of course. So some people, I'm sure, listening to this would have written it off. Go on, mate. Yeah,
they're still going to go. I reckon. I think my view is that if we can, we'll still go, even if we can't get to the game, because Vienna, as I understand it, is a lovely city. It's a good opportunity to go there and see Vienna, if anything. And we'll make the most. We won't let those flights go to waste. And I'm pretty sure the majority of the fans that have flights and hotels booked will probably do the same. But that's not the point. The point is that the only reason why 1,700 West Ham fans are going over there is to watch a game of football for 90 minutes. Instead, Austria now have, because of UEFA, have now got 1,700 West Ham fans coming to their city, most of which are going to be incredibly annoyed about the fact that they can't watch a football match for 90 minutes, and instead going to be in the bars on Thursday night, Friday night, and probably Saturday night. It's just like, what have you done? Like, it's just silly.
While the unvaccinated among their population are in lockdown or whatever it is. Yeah. Well, I mean, right, okay, James, let's address the issue head on then. 150 people storming the turnstiles. I mean, again, obviously it's not on. It's one of those things. It's such a long time, and this is in no way am I excusing these people's actions at all, by the way, especially with the consequences now. One thing from UEFA's point of view, anyone who saw or witnessed the storming of it last time, who might have just sort of shrugged, like West Ham fans who were in that away end, who might have just shrugged their shoulders and gone, "Oh, well, it's not my job, nothing to do with me. There should be more police or security," which is true. Like, again, it's the club's responsibility to ensure that sort of thing doesn't happen, isn't it? I know it's perhaps the wrong way of thinking about it. Of course it is. And I'm normally one where responsibility should lie with the individual. But for organisations and football clubs to have nothing in place to stop that sort of thing from happening. Yeah. When I was there, the general level of policing and stewarding, etc., was spare. So I got in the ground quite early. So I don't know what it got like closer to kickoff, but there was very few official security or whatever. It's not GENK's first time in Europe. So the fact that there wasn't enough staff there or policing or whatever to stop that sort of thing happening there's some responsibility on GENK or whoever falls that. I'm not sure who that falls with. I'm assuming GENK / the local council to police it. I don't know, but GENK, you'd think. So it shouldn't be possible to do that anyway. It's West Ham's first time in Europe for a long, long time. There was no reports of it in Zagreb, but it was a bit it happened quite quickly, didn't it? The turnaround. It was all quite quick. So I got the feeling that anyone who went out there, loads of tickets went on sale shortly before the game anyway, didn't they? So I got the impression anyone who went out there got into the game. But I mean, now, certainly if any West Ham fans ever see that happen again, particularly fans like us who have lost out to the tune of like £500 or £600, some more, some less, some less, some more, no doubt. if they perhaps shrugged at Genk when it was happening and gone, oh, or maybe even laughed or whatever, that will certainly never happen again, will it? There'll be no more. If that ever happens, if say we get into the knockout stage and there's an away game there and there's some people storming the turnstiles, you can bet your bottom dollar you probably won't need that many stewards or police, because you'll have West Ham fans, particularly the ones who've lost out on Vienna, who won't stand for that sort of like behaviour, will they?
No, I completely agree, and it is a learning curve, massive learning curve. I think it's disappointing that those fans have gone over there not purely with the intention of doing that, because it's not a good look on the club. It's not a good look on the fan base, and
No, it's not. No.
it's like, and even without all like the charges that we've got UEFA now, we can't go to Vienna and watch the game, and like, it's just not a good look. Like, we should be beyond that now as a football club. We've got our reputation from decades ago. A lot of clubs in Europe are itching to play us because of that reputation in terms of fan bases. Like, we just go over there and behave ourselves and enjoy the journey and not have to cause trouble or not have to essentially commit crimes. Like, we just go over there and enjoy the fact that West Ham are back in Europe. We're having an incredible time at the moment and not ruin it for everyone else. And that's the way I see it, is that essentially the actions of those fans that night have ruined it for everyone else.
Well, they have, of course.
It's not, and it's not fair. Who do you think you are? Just rocking up and thinking you can just storm into a stadium and watch a game? Like, there are going to be consequences either to you or to the wider fan base. And at the moment, it's the wider fan base, and it could even be, if they're identified, then the club will take action. They've already said that. And it's just frustrating. I mean, when the draw was made, I was looking at it going, okay, if I can't get tickets to a game, I might see if I can get over to one of them. Anyway, and just enjoy the atmosphere and maybe watch it in a bar somewhere outside the stadium or in the city or something. And that should have been the mindset of everyone that didn't have a ticket. If you still want to go over there, like, instead of a good time, watch it in a bar. Like, there's going to be plenty of other fans with exactly the same mindset. But unfortunately, there are some people in the world that don't see things like that, and they have a very selfish point of view, and that's exactly what it is. It's selfish. Okay, we've not been in Europe for so long, and it's a big, it's a big occasion. You want to be there. You want to see West Ham play away. But if you haven't got a ticket, you can't get in the ground. You've got no right to be in the ground. Like, that's the fact, and that's what frustrates me, is that they've let the club down. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on it, too harsh about it, but that's the way I see it. They've let the club down. They've let the fans down.
I think that's most of it, mate. I think
it's disappointing to see.
I think it's letting fellow fans down, isn't it? And again, you mentioned learning curve. Perhaps the argument from anyone who did rush in, some of them might be listening at the moment. Genuinely be, if anyone would be willing to, but come on and talk about it and whatever, that would be interesting. I can't imagine there's going to be a queue of people wanting to put their hand up and say, yeah, I'll come and chat about it. If there is anyone listening and you want to get in touch by all the normal channels. I don't know, mate. I still, it's not bailing people out. It's not, because it's ridiculous. And now, we've been directly affected, and I'm obviously not happy about it. And you think, that's brilliant. Cheers. Like, 150 of you got to watch that game, which means 1,700 of us can't watch it next week. Cheers. But I still do think there's onus on this. This isn't the first football match ever to be played. Do you know what I mean? The fact that 150, if it was 5 or 10, you sort of go, all right, fair enough. Mate, 150 people is a lot of people, isn't it? It takes about 30 minutes for 150 people to get through the security at London Stadium just to have their bags searched and a half-assed pat down. For 150 people, if you actually think about how many people that is stood up or whatever, to all storm over a turnstile and then be in the ground fine, I still, obviously not great, not good at all from the people who did it, but from the authorities as well. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, there
should Genk have been fined, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I get your point on the security and policing, but at the same time, you don't expect 150 blokes to rock or fans to
But
rock up
mate,
and
shouldn't
try
you?
and. I don't think you
Isn't that
should.
their job? Isn't that their job to
Especially,
expect stuff like that?
I think you particularly when it is West Ham, and I've already mentioned the reputation that we've got. Most clubs will up their policing, or they should up their policing and up their security, but you still don't expect as a football club to be kind of almost ambushed at the turnstiles. Like that's happened in the summer at Wembley for the Euros
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
final,
Yeah.
on a much larger scale, by the way.
Hmm.
And that was down to policing, but that was 90,000 fans, or probably I reckon 250,000 fans in and around that area, probably more. So you can understand why the policing and security was called into question. When you've got a small ground of, I don't know what the capacity was, 20, 25,000, which wasn't even a sellout.
I mean, they easily could have. I don't know what the rule. They easily could have sold more tickets to West Ham fans. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Like the Genk end was like barely.
Yeah.
I don't
You
know.
can see it on TV. It wasn't. It was
Yeah,
what
50% full is probably generous. That's probably generous to them. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. How did you feel about it then since, mate? Because obviously we haven't chatted until this to go on, whether we're going to go or not. The thing is now we've spent the money. I've got the time off work, and we've got a hotel to go for 2 nights, which would be a novelty and another milestone for our friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm more than happy to just have a couple of little like romantic days in Vienna, the pair of us. But it just seems like what you said, and I was chatting to my dad about the other day. He said, "Oh, that smells now." And your point, mate, about even if half still go, right? 1,700 tickets sold. I know of quite a few people who are planning on going without a ticket. So if you said 2,000 people had made plans to go, even if you said half of those went, I can't be bothered, still gonna have 1,000 West Ham fans out there who, and again, lots of in lots of different pockets, but there's a community of us all. In different people gather online in different places, and some people listen to podcasts, some people watch YouTube channels, others just do the old-fashioned and text their mates. But ultimately, there's going to be congregations of West Ham fans out there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to want to, and that's going to invite problems of its own, isn't it? It's much safer for them to all be hemmed in a stadium during the game. Yeah, perhaps we'll just have to go skiing or something for the weekend, mate.
I'm all over it. I've never been skiing, so you can show me the ropes, mate.
Yeah. This is 24-hour whistle top skiing tour in Vienna or whatever. But look, it is disappointing, isn't it? And it's a little blip on what's been a near perfect season so far. But learning curve or whatever. Fingers crossed it doesn't happen again. Not that you should try in the first place, but fingers crossed from now on, you shouldn't see it again now after this, should we? Like, fans will self-police it. Fans who spent hard-earned money on this, fans will self-police it if they see anything like that again. And then, just hopefully that's the last of it. Do you think?
I hope so. I mean, we haven't really. The fan base hasn't exactly painted itself in a lot of glory in this European, particularly. Well, obviously we had the incident on the plane as well. And I think all of this is now like the peak of it. And I think,
mate, I think that's unfair. The thing on the plane was abhorrent, but a handful. I mean, like 4 or 5
it's a handful,
people
but
involved in that. Yeah,
it's a handful, but it's not seen as a handful by the wider, the neutral. It's not
But
seen as
mate,
a handful.
put it this.
It's a
But put it this
stain.
way,
It's a stain on the fan base, and that's the problem. And the fact is that now, what's happened here, what's happened on a plane, and all the rest of it, and the reports of the home game with Vienna, that wasn't West Ham fans, I know, but it was seen by the media as West Ham fans being involved in scuffles with Vienna fans inside London Stadium. These little things these little things add up to the point where we've waited so long to be in this position, and now everyone's looking at West Ham fans as just a group of fans that just want to cause trouble. I know it's only a minority of people, but
that is important to note. But
it all stacks up for me, And people, the neutrals and the media, they're not going to be. Oh, it's only a few West Ham fans that cause trouble. They're going to go West Ham fans general because they paint everyone with the same brush. And that's the problem I've got with it. It's just like, well, it's not fair that we're now having to have this reputation bestowed upon us for the actions of a very, very few. And unfortunately, that's just the way of the world. Is that the many get blamed for the actions of the few.
I think that is it, mate. There was 1,150 or whatever West Ham fans in that away end who weren't for throwing anti-Semitic abuse at a person on his own on an aeroplane, and who also just paid for a ticket, travelled out there with their friends or their family or whatever, had a few beers, had a brilliant game, and watched West Ham play a brilliant 2-2 draw in Europe. And you're right, yeah, it does. The reputation thing's one thing, but this is what's happened with Vienna is hard consequences for all of us based on the actions of a quite a large minority. Still 150 is a lot of people, but hey, here's what it is. We'll suck it up. You might get good at skiing. We'll have a little tour and we'll just be doing a little bit more holding hands and sightseeing than we thought we might in the first place, mate, isn't it? Or at least an hour and a half more than we were going to originally. Yeah. It does mean, mate, we'll actually have to look at some of the sites and things you can actually do in Vienna rather than just assume we were going to rock up, find a pub and go to the game.
I'm up for that. Yeah, I want to see a bit of Vienna. Why not?
Absolutely, mate. Well, look.